My father spent my college fund on my brother's extravagant lifestyle as he was the golden child. You could manage on your own, he said. Well, I replied the same when they came to me 10 years later. I still remember the day my world fell apart. It had started like any other summer afternoon. The house was filled with the familiar hum of the ceiling fan, lazily spinning above the worn-out couch where I sat, clutching my college acceptance letter. I stared at it for what felt like hours, tracing my name with my fingers over and over again. Bella Carter. Accepted into Westfield University's pre-med program. It was a dream come true. I was going to be the first doctor in the family. Following in the footsteps of my grandmother, who had been a nurse for over 40 years. She had always believed in me, telling me how she could see the spark of compassion and determination in my eyes whenever I patched up my bruised knees as a child. You have healing hands, Bella, she had told me once, squeezing my fingers with her wrinkled, trembling ones. You're meant for more. Her words had become my guiding light. I had worked hard throughout high school, straight A's, volunteering at the local hospital, and working part-time shifts at a cafe to save some extra cash. I was ready. When my father walked into the living room, I beamed at him, holding out the letter with excitement. Dad. I got in. I gushed. But he barely glanced at the acceptance letter. Instead, his expression was tight, his jaw clenched with tension. Something in his eyes made my stomach sink. He sat down across from me, rubbing his temples. Bella, we need to talk, he muttered. The words came out slowly, like cement dragging through gravel. I frowned. What's wrong? He avoided my gaze. There's no college fund. I froze, blinking at him in disbelief. I felt my heart stutter, as if it had skipped a beat. No, that can't be right, I stammered, my voice weak. And when Caleb turned 22 and started blowing through thousands of dollars on luxury vacations, designer clothes, and clubbing, my father funded every bit of it. He's just finding himself, Bella. He deserves to have fun. Meanwhile, I had been working since I was 15. Juggling part-time jobs while keeping up my grades. Saving for my future while Caleb partied through his 20s. And now, with my college fund drained dry, I realized the truth: Caleb would always come first. No matter how much I suffered. No matter how much I was robbed. I packed my things that same night. A few clothes stuffed into a duffel bag. My grandmother's old necklace tucked safely into my pocket, the only thing I had left of hers. I didn't shed a single tear. I simply walked out the door, and I never looked back. The first few months were brutal. I had no money. No support system. Just sheer willpower. I crashed on a friend's couch at first, splitting rent with 3 other roommates in a dingy 1-bedroom apartment. During the day, I worked back-to-back shifts at a cafe. In the evenings, I cleaned offices, scrubbing floors until my hands bled. I enrolled in community college, taking night classes. Every spare penny I earned went toward tuition and textbooks. There were nights I came home with my feet blistered and swollen, my hands raw and cracked from scrubbing dishes. Nights I cried in the bathroom, choking on sobs, wondering if I would ever make it out of the hole they had thrown me into. But every time I thought of giving up, I remembered my grandmother's voice. The years that followed my decision to leave were the hardest of my life. When I walked out of my childhood home, I carried nothing but a duffel bag, a few changes of clothes, and the lingering sting of betrayal. I had no safety net, no one to call for help. No one to catch me if I fell. For the first few months, I couch-surfed with friends. Grandma left money for my education. She made sure. He cut me off sharply, his eyes hard. It's gone, Bella. I spent it. I stared at him, feeling the blood drain from my face. My throat closed up, making it hard to breathe. You spent it? I whispered, barely able to get the words out. My hands trembled. I searched his face, waiting for him to say it was a mistake, that he could fix it. But he didn't. Instead, he looked annoyed. Your brother needed it more, Bella. I blinked. Caleb? I choked. The golden child. Of course. My father leaned back in his chair, sighing as if I were being difficult. He had debts, Bella. You'll be fine. You're smart. You'll figure something out. My stomach clenched with rage and disbelief. The money that my grandmother had saved for my future, my dreams, was gone. Squandered on Caleb's lavish lifestyle. I stared at my father, tears stinging my eyes. He didn't flinch. No remorse. No apology. I'll figure something out? I asked, my voice shaking. That was my future. You stole it and gave it to Caleb. He rolled his eyes, as if I were being dramatic. You're overreacting, Bella. It's just money. Just money. Just my future. I stood up slowly, my legs trembling beneath me. I felt the searing betrayal in my chest like a physical wound. I looked him in the eye, and with a voice calm but full of quiet fury, I said, I'm done. And then, I turned around and walked out. Caleb. My older brother. The golden boy who could do no wrong. Growing up, Caleb was the son my parents orbited around. No matter what he did, they always forgave him. When he failed high school classes, my father made excuses. The teachers don't understand him. He's too creative for school. When he totaled his car drunk driving at 18, my father paid off the damage without a second thought. He just made a mistake, Bella. He's still a good boy. My high school friend, Maggie, let me crash in her tiny apartment. It was a cramped, dimly lit place with fading wallpaper and a mattress on the floor, but it was better than sleeping on the streets. Stay as long as you need, Bella, Maggie said with a tired smile. Her kindness brought tears to my eyes. I knew I couldn't rely on charity forever, though. I needed money. I needed a plan. So, I got to work. My first job was at a 24-hour diner, working the morning shift from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I spent hours waiting tables, pouring coffee, and scrubbing sticky tabletops. The uniform was stiff and itchy, and the smell of greasy bacon clung to my skin long after my shift was over. My feet throbbed from walking back and forth across the diner's linoleum floor. But I forced a smile for every customer. I needed the tips. After my morning shift, I walked 3 blocks to my second job at a local grocery store. From 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., I stocked shelves, hauled crates of produce, and mopped the floors. The fluorescent lights were harsh, and the pay was barely enough to cover food and rent, but I didn't stop there. After my second shift ended, I would walk home in the dark, often falling into bed too exhausted to shower. Then, I would wake up and do it all over again. I survived on ramen noodles and instant coffee. Some days, I only ate once, other nights. I went to bed with an empty stomach, clutching my pillow to silence the hunger pangs. There were times when I wanted to give up, when the exhaustion became so overwhelming, I could barely keep my eyes open during my night classes at community college. I would sit in the back of the classroom, my eyelids drooping, my hands trembling from fatigue, but I forced myself to stay awake, because I knew if I gave up, I would be letting them win. Despite the relentless work schedule, I refused to let go of my dream. I enrolled in community college, taking evening classes in biology and chemistry after my double shifts. There were nights when I was so tired that I couldn't even hold a pen properly, my hands shaking from the strain. I would sit in class, my eyes bloodshot, my hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, barely able to keep my head up. But whenever I felt like quitting, I would take out my grandmother's old locket. I kept it tucked safely in my pocket, running my fingers over the smooth metal whenever I felt weak. I would close my eyes and picture her face, hear her gentle voice reminding me, "You're meant for more, Bella. Keep going." And so, I kept going. Every exam I passed became a small victory. Every completed semester was a step closer to the future I had dreamed of. There were no family visits during those years. No calls from my father. No messages from Caleb. I saw their social media posts, though. Caleb was still partying in Vegas, driving luxury cars, and vacationing in the Bahamas, all with the money that was meant for my education. My father was still beaming with pride in photos with Caleb, as if his golden child could do no wrong. They looked happy, while I scrubbed floors and packed groceries just to survive. But even in my loneliness, I refused to reach out to them. I would rather starve than let them see me weak. I would rather die fighting than ask for their help. I worked 2 jobs for years, slowly saving up for my tuition. I applied for every scholarship I could find, often staying up until 3 a.m. to write essays for grants. I sacrificed everything, my youth, my social life, my health, but I never stopped. Because I had a dream, and I was going to make it real, no matter the cost. After 7 years of relentless struggle, I finally made it. I graduated from medical school with top honors, walking across the stage in my cap and gown, as they called my name. My hands shook slightly, and I felt my throat tighten with emotion. I clutched my diploma, staring at the piece of paper I had fought so hard for. My eyes filled with tears. I had done it. Without them. Without their support. Without their help. I was now Dr. Bella Carter. In the years that followed, my career soared. I became one of the most sought-after cardiac surgeons in the state, specializing in complex heart procedures. My name was in medical journals. I was invited to speak at conferences. I even received awards for my contributions to the field. I bought a beautiful penthouse apartment, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city. The view was breathtaking, the skyline glittering with lights stretching as far as the eye could see. I drove a sleek black Mercedes. The leather seats cool against my skin as I sped down the freeway. I wore tailored designer suits and silk blouses, and I finally had the luxury to take vacations in Paris and Santorini. I was financially secure, successful, and finally at peace. The life I had dreamed of was now my reality. For 10 years, I heard nothing from my father or Caleb. Not a call. Not a letter. Not a word. I had erased them from my life, and I was happier without them. I no longer carried their betrayal. I was finally free. One evening, as I was preparing dinner in my penthouse, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, an unknown number. I nearly ignored it, but something made me pick up. Hello? I answered cautiously. There was a pause. Then, a familiar voice crackled through the line. Bella. It's Dad. For a moment, I felt numb. I gripped the edge of the marble countertop, my knuckles turning white. I hadn't heard his voice in a decade. But there it was. Weak. Desperate, Bella. Honey, we need your help, he said. His voice trembled slightly, and I could tell he was on the verge of tears. Caleb made some bad investments, he confessed. We lost everything. The house. The savings. It's all gone. I closed my eyes and let his words wash over me. They were broke. Bankrupt. The golden child had squandered it all. Please, Bella, my father begged. We need your help. You're successful now. Please, honey. We're family. Family. The word made my stomach turn. For 2 weeks after that phone call, I assumed my father had finally gotten the message. That he would crawl back into whatever hole of misery he had come from and leave me in peace. I was wrong. Very wrong. The calls started first. At first, they were infrequent, just once or twice a day. My phone would light up with unknown numbers, which I instantly knew were either my father or Caleb. I blocked the numbers without a second thought. But they were persistent. Every time I blocked a number, they called from a different one. And when they couldn't reach me directly, they started calling my office. One morning, as I arrived at my clinic, my receptionist, Claire, greeted me with an uncomfortable look. Dr. Carter, she said softly, lowering her voice. Your father has called 3 times this morning. He keeps asking to be put through. He says it's an emergency. My stomach tightened. I forced a smile, trying not to let my irritation show. Next time he calls, tell him I'm unavailable. Every time. No exceptions. Claire's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. Of course, Dr. Carter. By the end of the week, they had called my office over 30 times. I knew exactly what they were doing. Trying to wear me down. Hoping I would cave. But when the calls didn't work, they took it a step further. I had just returned from a conference in Chicago, stepping out of my car and into the underground parking garage of my penthouse building. As I slipped my key card into the security panel, I suddenly heard a voice behind me. Bella. I whirled around, my blood turning cold. Standing there was Caleb. His once carefully styled hair was now greasy and unkempt. His designer jacket was tattered, and his face was thin and hollow. But his eyes were still filled with the same entitlement I remembered. Bella, hey. You're a hard woman to track down, you know? He smirked, as if he were entitled to my time. I clenched my fists, keeping my expression cold and unreadable. What the hell are you doing here? I asked sharply. He shrugged casually, as if he hadn't just ambushed me. I figured you wouldn't pick up the phone, so I came to see you in person, he said, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. I could smell the desperation on him. His clothes were wrinkled, his shoes scuffed. He looked pitiful, but I felt no sympathy. Leave. Now. I turned toward the security panel, ignoring him. But he stepped in front of me, blocking my way. Look, Bella. I just need some help, okay? His voice took on a whining tone, as if he were a child begging for candy. I know I screwed up, but you're my sister. Family takes care of each other, right? I narrowed my eyes. The audacity of him. Family? Now he wanted to talk about family? I let out a cold laugh, my voice laced with venom. You only remember we're family when you're broke, Caleb. I took a step closer, my voice low and steady. You and Dad left me for dead. Now you want me to save you? You're pathetic. His smirk dropped. And for a second, I saw the flash of fury in his eyes. He wasn't used to me standing up to him. To me refusing him. You selfish bitch, he spat, his eyes flashing with anger. You have all this money, and you can't even help your own family? You're disgusting. Without a word, I turned my back to him and pressed my key card to the panel. The door clicked open, and I stepped inside. But before it closed, Caleb's hand shot out and grabbed my arm. I yanked it free and turned on him, my voice sharp and cold. Touch me again, and I will have you arrested. His eyes narrowed. But he saw the fury in my eyes. He knew I meant it. Without another word, I turned and entered the building, leaving him seething behind the glass doors. After the parking garage incident, I filed a trespassing complaint against Caleb. I hired private security to watch my home and office. But my father and Caleb didn't stop. When they realized they couldn't break me directly, they turned to public humiliation. Within days, fake social media posts started popping up. Photos of Caleb and my father looking destitute, accompanied by long, emotional captions. Our beloved daughter, Dr. Bella Carter, refuses to help us in our time of need. After everything we've done for her, she turned her back on us. She's abandoned her family for greed. Please, share our story and help us find justice. The photos went viral. I started receiving hate messages online. Strangers were calling me selfish, labeling me as a cold-hearted, ungrateful daughter. Fake accounts were tagging my professional page with comments like, "How can you be a doctor when you let your own family suffer? Shame on you." It was a calculated move. They were trying to ruin my reputation, to pressure me into giving them money. But I wasn't going to let them win. I met with my lawyer the next day. I want a restraining order against both of them, I said, my voice calm but firm. My lawyer, Mr. Caldwell, gave a slow nod. We'll file the paperwork immediately. Within 2 weeks, I had legally banned them from coming near my home, my clinic, or my office. They were also ordered to stop harassing me through social media, with the threat of facing legal action if they continued. But Caleb and my father didn't give up easily. One evening, I returned home to find an envelope slipped under my door. I picked it up and ripped it open. It was a letter from my father. Bella, we're being evicted. We have nowhere to go. Please. Let us stay with you for just a few months. You have so much. We only need a little. Please, Bella. We're family. I stared at the letter for a long time. Then, with ice in my veins, I walked over to my kitchen. Without a second thought, I dropped the letter into the fireplace and watched it burn to ash. The next time my father and Caleb tried to contact me, my lawyer had them served with a cease and desist order. I made sure that they were blacklisted from ever entering my building. I had their social media accounts taken down. I blocked them on every platform. And just like that, they were erased from my life. No more calls. No more harassment. No more begging. They had used me, discarded me, and robbed me of my future. But now, I had cut them off forever. And this time, the door stayed shut.